So being a comic book nerd, how many people know the reference already to the title? All right, raise your hand if you understand the reference. Okay, thank you, my fellow nerds. Doing this intentionally because there's an X-Men storyline that basically they bounce around different time periods. Of course, Marvel, you know, they're doing this all in the movies now too. But one of the massive, well-known X-Men storylines is Days of Future Past. My contact information is up there. It'll be at the end of the slides too. But I'm going to talk about a lot of stuff in here. Stuff I really want you to sit back and consider, and taking moments while we're going to be going on this journey together. And a lot of things I'm going to be throwing at you are going to feel somewhat science fiction-y, but a lot of it is going to be based off of stuff that we're already seeing. It just may not be readily sitting in front of you on a daily basis. Some of the stuff, unless you're studying this on a daily basis, you may not be aware of how fast some of the stuff that's going on behind the scenes is going to be hitting you. So I'm starting at the end, so everyone knows where I'm going to be headed in here. Your job in cybersecurity, digital forensics, incident response is hard. It's about to get a heck of a lot harder. There's going to be no shame in saying, I don't know. We'll come back to that. In your mission, and there's going to be a big call to action at the end of this, is you need to take a step back and saying, I need to go back into that first step. Like a lot of you in here, this is your first event, your first digital forensics conference. You need to take a step back and say, okay, I've been doing this for 20 years. I need to go back into that learning mode that I had at the beginning of my journey, at the beginning of my career, to step through this. So in order to tell the story about where I'm going to end and really do this call to action, it's like you need to start opening the books again, and there's a key reason why. All right, so stuff I think about, past, present, future. I'm going to jump the past just for a little bit. 1993. We're like, wow, we jumped back and even 10 more years earlier than a lot of you were expecting. But 1993, what was some of the seminal moments that happened in 1993? There's one in particular regarding the internet in 1993 that happened. Anyone could reach back into your history books. The browser, yes, the first browser was released. The internet, the reason I bring that up, the internet that is known as the internet, and everyone's starting to do dial-ins, truly started in 1995, 1996 timeframes. AOL dial-ins, you hear the modem, clickovers with the buzz, that stuff, which a lot of kids don't even understand what those sounds mean anymore. Kind of like the picture snaps, that also go on. These is where we were at in 1993. However, if anyone was watching any TV in the United States during this point, you may be familiar with these commercials. I'm gonna go and play them for just a little bit. I'm not play the entire thing though. Hopefully we have sound.
Thousands of miles away, across the country, without stopping for directions, or sent someone a fax from the beach. You will, and the company that'll bring it to you. Have you ever paid a toll without slowing down?
Yes.
Bought concert tickets from a cash machine.
Perfect.
You will, and the company that'll bring it. Have you ever watched the movie you wanted to, the minute you wanted to?
Anyways, you get the point there. AT&T had about 20 of these commercials running around on that point. Does anyone remember these? I'm just curious. All right, so remember, this is before the internet. This is before the majority of these things ever existed. And you're sitting at home with your rotary phone, your kids are out, this is still during the time frame that they put on the TV at 10 p.m. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your kids are? Those kind of commercials like, hey, where are the kids? I'm like, I don't know. He said to come home when the lights come on. That's pretty much what the standard was. But the things that they're really trying to emphasize here were things that really, in most cases, didn't come into existence for nearly 20, 25 years, that far down in the future. But it's all based on the fact that this internet technology is really going to be a transformative crossover of what is possible. And they just started to dangle that in front of people. And people looked at this stuff like, I'm never going to be able to watch a movie, including to watch a movie on the screen. I don't know if you noticed, that was a flat screen TV that they had on the back of that wall that's mounted a picture. That was one of the earliest times you ever saw anyone, even depict. That's how small TVs were going to get. And it's kind of fascinating when you sit there and are thinking about it. It's like all those things that you see on the slide here, in fact, did come true. And that's one of the reasons why when you take a look back at for those of us in here, we're making a joke. I think, Jen, you were saying, what was the 1900s like, Dad? What was the 1900s like, Mom? And you're like, oh my God, that I guess that is an actual question that we could be, we could have. It's like, yeah, we didn't have the internet. We had to open up a paper and then figure out where the movie was, and then see the movie times. We couldn't book the tickets ahead of time, so we actually had to go there, pick up, buy the tickets. Hopefully, it's not sold out. How do you meet your friends? I mean, these kind of problems, you end up, how do we actually do that without, cell phones, technology, the texting, and so forth? The transformation that occurred from 1996 to about 2004 really moved mostly everyone from some, in fact, saying, I will never get a cell phone. Does anyone in here remember ever stating to your family, I'm not going to be getting a cell phone? Yeah, so some people are like, no, that's not going to happen to me. Of course, you have a cell phone now, I guarantee it. These type of things, you have to take a step back and kind of remind yourself where you were. But this massive amount of transformation technology-wise occurred over a very, very, very short period of time and changed a lot of the way that society ends up working with each other, with work, and so forth. So what? Reason to tie this in, and this comes from one of my favorite authors to talk to next, is man has a limited capacity for change. When this capacity is overwhelmed, that capacity is in what is called future shock. So Alvin Toffler is an individual that was a futurist. He passed away age 87 in 2013, I believe. And when we start talking about what's going on between now and into the future, we're in this next transformation stage. There's been minor transformation stages, including the internet, including the advent of the smartphone, which happened in 2007. That was also a massive transformative event. But the stuff that we now have is about to become much more than about the haves and have-nots in society, because instead of, hey, this is an add-on technology, this is going to be transforming much more of the underlying societal implications of what AIs could potentially do to us. 1996, the reason I bring this up is back when I was at the Air Force Academy, I took one of the first information warfare style classes, and one of the books that they had us read was The Third Wave. He had another book called Future Shock, which basically walks through this concept of what are the implications of AI and computer-based technologies on society. Now, he wrote that book in 1970. Oddly enough, and also not a well-known fact, that Alvin Toffler is also coined the term information overload. He also helped coin the term for the music genre techno, because he called them techno rebels. And then the techno, whoever started the techno, I forgot who the name of the individual was who kind of coined it, was familiar with this word. He's like, that's kind of cool. We're the techno rebels. Therefore, we'll just call this music genre techno. Third wave, the second book that you talk about, it says society goes through three major changes. And has anyone in here have seen the three-body problem? Okay, so if you're in the three-body problem, they actually literally directly quote from this book. Society goes through an agricultural-based phase, industrial-based phase, and then information-based phase. And that's the third wave. Once an industry hits information-based waves, the majority of jobs are based on information. In agriculture, 99% of the jobs on the planet are about crops and yielding crops. That's what your job was likely. Industrial phase, your job was working in a factory of some sort. So it's really kind of a fascinating book talking about the different waves that portions of the planet we're going through, and that once you hit that third wave, you're trading in information, you're trading in technologies, and those who have the most access and the better ability to tie in that technology to what they're doing on a daily basis, that society is going to win. So what? Coming back to this. Main point of this is we start walking through this, humans are shocked when stuff rapidly changes. We end up getting into a, no, stick your head in the sand a little bit attitude. This can't really be happening as fast as it may be happening. And we really got to stop ourselves for a second and say, hey, there's some stuff going on right now that are huge in terms of what's going to be going on. So 2023, you may have heard about some of the latest stuff out there. We're talking about artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence, I'm going to go ahead and just draw a big circle around that term, even though you could go down into there's machine learning, there is deep learning, there is generative AI, there is AGI. Anyone know what AGI stands for? That's when it becomes a human, like thinking like a human. That's, when is AGI going to hit? They're still predicting about 5 more years or so. But generative AI and all these other terms, they're just encapsulating it all into this term called artificial intelligence for now. So if you're really into artificial intelligence, when I'm talking about it, I'm talking about potentially any of these overall fields. So this is where there's a lot of futurists out there. Emad, if you haven't been, do not follow him on Twitter or his companies. Highly recommend to take a look at some of the stuff that he's saying behind the scenes. Elon Musk as well. Regardless of the politics behind it, so many individuals out there that if you start really paying attention to what they're saying is enlightening, and they're also trying to hint at things about to come. Ahmad, this comes from a quote that came out even just last week. Humanity is standing on the edge of the most transformative events in our history. A lot of reasons why he's saying that, and this might scare some of you, might say, hey, this is going to be amazing. Really depends on which side of the coin that you're going to be looking at this from. So when we start talking about what this is going to mean for you, because immediately you hear all the stuff that's going on in the background, this noise, how's it going to impact you as an individual? There are 3 things that's going to impact you. So when you end up starting to really dive into AI and its capabilities, one of the first things that you're going to realize is that utilizing AI tools and capabilities will help you get stuff done. I like using the other word S, but it sounds more appropriate for the room to say get stuff done a lot more efficiently. There is predictions, because most of the stuff that we're doing right now is through prompt engineering, prompt input, output, where it's very like using a keyboard or on your like you're texting a friend, go do something. The autonomous agents, we haven't really as a society started to dive into those, but they're right on the precipice. You're going to hear about it from the end of this year, probably forward. A lot more autonomous agents are going to be built, released, and essentially going to be working for you on the side. You're going to have autonomous agents that are going to do a task that you find meaningless. It's going to take care of the task and produce an output for you that you can take it and then move it to the next level. It's going to help you and be your little personal assistant. It's going to help you in your job. It's going to help you with your kids. You're going to have agents created all over the place in your life. The prediction is in just by 2025, there's going to be 100 billion individual AI agents that are going to be working for different individuals, corporations, militaries, X, Y, and Z out there online. You start thinking some of those numbers, like that's a pretty big number, and that's a pretty big number fast. Yes, because the technology is already there. It's a matter of implementation. It's a matter of security code controls and some other things. We'll come back to that here in a second. By 2028, a third of all interactions with generative AI will use action models and autonomous agents to complete tasks. So that is just flat out amazing when you end up thinking about like, what are we doing with AI right now versus where is it going? And this is, again, once you get these autonomous agents that are set up and say, get it programmed and say, here's what I want it to do, here's where I'd like it to go, that's just going to be mind-blowing. The second thing that's going to happen here is it's going to give you time. Now, everyone says, well, does that mean I get more leisure time? I get to go take a longer nap? No, it frees you up from doing tasks that just take up a lot of time in your day. I imagine one of those tasks is you'll be a lot more efficient on email and responding to emails, even being on Zooms, meeting efficiencies. A lot of these things are going to become much less time sponges because we're going to be able to make them much more efficient. Now, why is this particularly going to be important for us, especially as a society? When you know taking the implications of time, it frees you up from tedious tasks to let you become creative and thoughtful about things that are big pictures, that creativity side that says, how would I potentially solve this next big problem? Instead of just, okay, I need to respond to all these emails for the next 4 hours. So the time here is not, you're getting a time back for leisure, your time is getting back for more creativity that you're going to be able to achieve. And the last one is skills. Now, before you read the top and bottom quotes in here, just because I talked about jobs, this is one that AI is going to allow you to start tapping into skills you have never officially been trained to ever use. Every single one of you in here can now code. Every single one of you in here can create videos and movies and special effects and write like you've never been able to write before. If you have a skill that's out there and you say random skill name, I'll be able to tell you that AI is going to build up a capability that will allow that skill to essentially, where it used to be another person, you're just going to be able to task an AI to go do that for you. This ends up having a couple of major implications from a socioeconomic worldview impact is, well, what does it mean to the person who's doing that job, Rob? That's kind of scary. And again, when you end up taking a look at AI automations, is going to put 300 million full-time jobs at risk. This is, again, from you look at the source World Economic Forum, where that's from. This is estimates right now. You can say, okay, maybe they're off by 100 million, maybe it's 50 million. It is going to start to impact more and more jobs. However, the 97% of the new jobs that you end up seeing there, or sorry, 97 million new jobs are also being created that help drive the AI agents, that help, if you're creative in understanding of how AI works, you're going to be in a really good position to say, I'm going to still be gainfully employed because I understand how AI works and I understand how to potentially leverage it inside my organization. This becomes that argument on the haves and have-nots. It doesn't mean, hey, there's a deficit there, but again, there's this going to be ever increasing curve of AI-enabled humans driving AI resources. And if you're on the other side of that, it's like, well, I maybe have to retrain myself in order to get to the point where I am an AI-enabled human being. So let's talk about this. The cost of intelligence is dropping dramatically as a part of AI as well. This is, again, one of those what the moments when you think about this. It is if you think about this, right now, you have the ability to interact with AIs that arguably are equivalent to an undergrad with a degree that just graduated from college. You say, I could task or ask this AI agent to basically function like someone who just graduated college. And what is the cost of that other than the compute? Maybe paying to a service, but in reality, what you end up paying for it is cheaper than a cup of coffee. And when you talk about the outsourcing of things, everything's going to go to India or everything's here in the United States. This island of AI automation, which again, about 5, 6, 7 weeks ago, someone called it AI Atlantis, is like coming up offshore somewhere in the Atlantic with 800 billion agents on it. And of course, the cost of using it is near zero. So if you have the ability to tap into intelligence at a near zero cost, how is that going to affect what you do, what your jobs do, what you're going to be doing tomorrow, what you potentially be doing 5 years from now? While the value of human ingenuity using AI will continue to skyrocket. And soon, maybe now, this is one of the most crucial skills that you're going to need to have, is the understanding and ability to manipulate the different ways AI is going to be working. Those human beings are going to be driving the future where everyone else might be, well, what am I going to do? And the answer is, you talk to all the pundits out there, is society needs to go through a massive retraining and re-education at all levels of society, from grade school all the way up to your grandmother. And again, the implications of this is happening so fast that this is one of those calls to actions you're going to hear me talk about later that really should tell you is that I need to start focusing in on AI like you go to the gym. You have to take a step back, say, okay, I'm doing my 30 minutes of AI today, then I'll do my 30 minutes gym workout. Boom, boom. You have to get that done. What about the governments and businesses? Again, this comes from a very interesting report. Again, I found this just a few days ago. If you look on the far left-hand side of this, that's today in terms of investment in AI. And you could take a look what we're looking at in the near future, what the prediction is in government and businesses, what the potential revenue, investment, output is from these two technologies. We are not less than 10 years away from this being the major economic factor of what is driving the world. More than oil, energy is going to be tied to this, but it's going to be those who control the AI and are able to leverage it inside your businesses are going to be the ones that are going to be winning the overall battle. So what? And here's a big kind of a fear factor thing that's, you kind of want to take a step back and say, no industry is safe. It doesn't mean that everyone in the industry is going to lose their jobs. Nope, we're talking that no industry is safe from saying, hey, we don't have to worry about AI. We don't have to worry about the implications of AI. It's the core issue here is that because the cost of intelligence is plummeting. And the other issue here is unless there's broad education in what AI is, even internally to your own organizations, there cannot be informed debates about the future if people don't understand the basics. And that in of itself means that who's going to help drive those debates? If you are not core educated in the core of AI, we're not saying you could go like, hey, I'm going to go build an LLM in my backyard, do a small nuclear reactor next to that. There's this aspect of it. It's like, are you keeping up with just the basics? So when someone has a debate with you on it, you're able to you're able to potentially point out, here's a different perspective on this. Here's a different way to potentially take a look at this. All these things are combined. So shifting over to your work, what we do, your job is hard. The reason why your job is hard right now, because there are threefold things that you're being asked to take a look at. Number one is, we're in digital forensics incident response. How are you currently leveraging or trying to use AI to enhance your digital forensics input, output processes, report writing? At a minimum, you should be using AI to help write your reports, saying, hey, I make you a much better writer. You give it a couple keywords and facts and says, generate the paragraph, go for that. What about analytics? What about being able to pull in different artifacts and have it do some analysis? The challenge here, even with the AI side, is you have to be really careful, is that AI has a habit of, despite the question you ask it, it'll always give you an answer. So you have to use AI capabilities that will admit when it's wrong or it doesn't know something. Perplexity that I've been using over the past month, highlighted by multiple individuals, you could say, Perplexity, I am looking for an Iranian threat actor, goose duck, find all references to Iranian cyber threat actor goose duck online go. And it comes back to me and says, I have not been able to find anything related to Iranian threat actor goose duck. However, here's some other Iranian threat actors you might be interested in. So it immediately tells you that it doesn't know, but other like Rock and Llama and some of the other ones, it may not tell you that. It'll probably say, hey, here's an answer. What I think is what you're looking for. You just have to be really careful about how you're leveraging that. But your first issue is, how are you using AI in your workflows, in your cybersecurity jobs daily? Second issue, how many of you are looking at the deep DNA side of how AI is implemented inside an organization in order to know how it functionally works, in order to how to defend or exploit it properly? This requires deep level knowledge of the tech stack that AI is sitting on. This is where, when you start talking around and you go out and look at all, like, what's at Black Hat, what's, these different conferences that are out there, a lot of folks are talking about what if stuff regarding policy. And there's not as many talks because there's not as many folks in our career field that are taking a deep dive analysis of what are the actual DNA elements that's going on in that tech stack, and how do we potentially approach it from a defense and an offensive perspective. How would you exploit it? How would you defend it? How do you do access controls for it? All of these things start to ask the question, but it requires you to understand the low-level technology. I think the best analogy is like, when Phil and I were doing network stuff, most of us way back in the 90s, our favorite book on the shelf was TCP/IP Volume Illustrated 3, Volume 3. And we would go pull that book down and have all the low-level stuff about how each internet, TCP packet was generated. What are the different fields? What does it do? How does it communicate? And that led us to looking at certain parameters, led to intrusion detection systems, and so forth. That level of knowledge is literally what's going to be required in order for us to really protect the attack surface. Unfortunately, because of the massive amount of spend that is heading up into AI, that's the one thing that they're saying, we need to generate revenue. We don't need to understand how to protect it just yet. We'll figure that out later. So all these solutions are rushing out the door without someone taking a hard look at how to potentially control it, protect it, make sure bad things can't happen to it. And it's, a system with integrity, you go down the standard provisions of what we're trying to do here. Then the last one, and this is one we also are asked questions about because we're security people, they might ask you directly out of the blue. So you're a smart, cybersecurity person. We need your input on what should we do in our corporation in regards to AI. So the majority of organizations out there have this big, let's not touch it in one aspect, or we'll adopt slowly. Or in some organizations that are really leaning forward, they say our policy is we want everyone to play with it. We need to have it out in the open, and then we'll share the best of techniques across the organization. Those organizations, by the way, are going to handle AI a lot better than the organizations that are going to try to control it and centralize it, or try to control and approve by tool. We are already seeing it out there. It's, we're having that side. Then we have level debates above that. What is going on at the national, international levels? The EU, the United States, the presidential directives. While these are really good starts, they're far from adequate in order to have a specific debate as to whether or not AI is functioning properly, how to set up guardrails for safety, guardrails for implementations, and so forth. But again, a lot of those debates are being discussed with people who don't understand the basics. So we need folks to have the basics down in order to have an informed debate about it, instead of the FUD debate, which is, I don't know what it is, it looks scary, let's just restrict it. We need to have much more of an involved debate with people who are educated, especially on the cybersecurity side. What are the implications of this when they come to you and ask these questions inside your organizations? What do we do? What is your recommendation? And of course, since we've been in the organization for 20 years and we're the tech nerd there, we're of course supposed to have an answer. Come back to that in a second. The MITRE Atlas, when you're taking a look at this, is a good start. It's far from adequate in terms of trying to map out the different ways you could attack the AI attack space or defend the AI attack space from potential attacks. And again, I mentioned this, is that it's, hey, if you're at least need to start somewhere and trying to understand what are the different ways that could be. A lot of these things, though, behind the scenes are still theoretical. We've actually have no known adversaries using these. It is more, there is likely an adversary that could do that. We haven't figured out exactly how or what it would look like actual implementation in the real world. Some of the stuff is definitely already being used, using AI to craft better spear phishing emails, during data collection, with the Iranian stuff this last week, using deepfakes to start to influence the presidential election. That's like small fry stuff, meaning that they're just using initial capabilities, image generation, trying to create fake news sites just for influence operations. Yes, we need to get good at detecting that as much as we get good at how can we make sure Iranian threat actors aren't sitting on Midjourney or OpenAI or any of the other capabilities utilizing this. So it goes into, well, how do we control it from happening in the first place? How do we kick those threat actors off of these potential locations to do this? What does it look like? How do we restrict it? Do we restrict entire country codes? And there's too many easy ways to get back into it. But again, just from a observation standpoint of what they're generating, that could be potentially monitored inside the GenAI implementation. So going back to your job is hard. And again, you take a look at a lot of these headlines here. This is what we're facing. This is what your bosses read, you read on a daily basis. You see at the top there, I grabbed that one. Microsoft, Iran is trying to influence US votes via AI-generated news sites. GenAI drives 1,760% surge in business email compromise attacks. That's pretty scary. GenAI is turning the cybersecurity landscape and the CISO role on its head. AI nation-state attackers, US spies to find them, NSA cyber director. Over 100 malicious AI ML models found on Hugging Face platform. I mean, this goes on and on. You could spend a good portion of the day just saying, what is the latest stuff that is AI related? And the question your boss is going to come back and say, how do you defend against that? What is our concern here? What is our risk? What should we do? I don't know. This is, again, in order to answer these questions, you need a baseline. And are you properly equipped with the baseline? The other thing you have to take a look at, and remember, I'm circling back to an earlier point. Remember the thing I talked about, autonomous AI agents? Now, here's this going to be really cool. So everyone in here, whether you believe it or not, you're going to have your own little personal assistants running around with you. Whether it's, it's in your phone, with the AI stuff that Apple phone's coming up with and releasing later in October now, you're going to be able to say, hey, phone, on a daily basis, I want you to go through, read through my emails, create a to-do list of the most important emails based on the prioritizations of the people sending it. Make sure if it's, if there are tasks in there that could be automatically done, start prepping those so I could review before we send them out. AI autonomous agent. Well, just that one AI autonomous agent built from your phone, it's accessing company resources to go do these things. How do you differentiate the AI agent from the human now? And that's a big problem in the security world. And I guarantee this is not really brought up in your security meetings. It's like, okay, so when so-and-so builds Bob, his autonomous AI agent, that's his personal assistant, and Bob is not an employee, but Bob is run by Rob, our employee that has access to all these things. Is it okay that Bob gets access to these things and does stuff on behalf of Rob? And this is where your brain starts to explode. It's like, well, how would I differentiate between the two? Because the autonomous AI agent's going to be given the same permissions because it's run underneath my account structure. We don't know the answers to these questions yet. This is, again, I look to smart people like yourselves. Guess what? I guarantee in the next 6 months, this is going to be a problem sitting on your lap. Might as well get in front of it and start taking a look at this one. What about from a forensics perspective? What if Bob does something that it's not supposed to do? Bad Bob. And looking at bad Bob, and from a forensics and incident response standpoint, is it Rob's fault? Did he code it wrong? Did bad Bob go access something he shouldn't have accessed and then release it on the internet? I don't know. These are questions that we have yet to answer just when you end up taking a look at this stuff. All right, moving forward. So again, go to Toffler, who died in 2013, by the way, he was like 87 at this point. Our technological powers increase, but the side effects and potential hazards also increase. So AI is coming. There's a tsunami heading at us. We have all these concerns at us, and we're the cybersecurity community. All right, you see where I'm going with this. Now is the biggest issue. And I love this quote from Parks and Rec. I'm just going to read it to you. I'm going to tell you a secret about everyone else's job. No one knows what they're doing. Deep down, everyone's just faking it until they figure it out. And you will too, because you're awesome and everyone else sucks. April Ludgate. So the reason I mention this is that because of the fact that the majority of us, we have been doing cybersecurity for a long time. My bosses look at me and says, Rob, you're well known in the industry. He's like, what do you know about AI? And they assume because they see me as a smart person, they see a success of, you've done a ton of stuff in your life and you've, contributed this, contributed that. And they ask the question, what do you think about this? And I'm like, oh, good question. And in the back of my mind, I'm like, oh, geez, I have no idea how to even answer that. Part of the reason why is that for a long period of time, I was just kind of reading a little bit about AI and not really diving into it on a specific level to go learn it. But my question to you is, when you're starting to talk about why your job is hard, you're struggling to maintain your expertise at the top of that pyramid, which is the stuff solid pyramid right at the top. That's the stuff you try to maintain. There's stuff you don't know, which is like, okay, I may not know this. And then there's stuff you don't know. That's actually a lot of the AI stuff that's sitting at, in that level right there. So we're still trying to struggle to maintain our proficiencies just in digital forensics or just in smartphone analysis or just in our one domain. But I'm going to hint here, your bosses, and there are going to be cases coming your way that are going to start pushing you into the realm of, hey, what about this AI thing that's embedded in there? How do you approach that? And you might say, oh, it's no different than, and you start pontificating off of it, kind of spouting off stuff. But the point is, everyone is struggling to keep up with this stuff. The second point is, your job is hard. Your job and what we do in here in cybersecurity is extremely super important. And if you don't know stuff, it's okay. But a question, and I want you to really ponder this for a second, and I'm going to ask you to raise your hand if you're in this bucket. Are you faking it about your current knowledge of AI and GenAI ML technologies? Usually a lot more hands go up in here. And the reason why people are afraid to sit there and say, I don't really know that much about it. I'm kind of nascent learner. I've not really understand the low-level stuff out there to potentially, but people ask me questions about it. I kind of go around doing my technobabble thing, and you get by. But the problem here is this technological wave that's hitting us right now is moving so fast at us, we actually need to take a stop, a rewind, and really ask yourself, you need to learn this stuff and have it become a part of your daily life's journey in order to stay ahead of this technological wave that's coming our way. Because as security people, things are crucial that we get this right. Okay, because, and I'm not exaggerating when I say this, if you don't know it well and bad things happen, people's lives do depend on you knowing this stuff. And this is true when you really look up and stare at the precipice and looking down at how important your job is and how people rely on you to be the expert in your organizations, no matter if you're in the military, energy sector, hospital, and so forth. If there's an oops, like at CrowdStrike, that occurs, it always points back to this. Now, did anyone lose their lives at that point? No, but you could see like a massive glitch impact like that could. What if you're a security admin at a hospital and they pull in new technology that's AI basic, someone exploits that, ransomware the heck out of that hospital, people's lives depend on you learning this stuff. That's not a joke, it's the reality of what the responsibility is working in this community. So I could stop on that point. However, I'm going to scare you a little bit more here. That's just AI. There's some other things that are hitting us at the same time. So Steve Jobs, I like doing the one more thing. One more thing, future stuff. All right. So we start with just a reminder of the AI. AI is going to be much more transformative than I believe the average human is actually ready for. Over the next 5 years, it's going to be extremely fascinating for you to be alive at this point. Just take notes and start writing journals, like the before and afters, because this is very similar to when you had talked to your kids. What was life like before the internet, after the internet? It's going to be before and after AI. There's this aspect of it. Many people believe businesses that do not begin to embrace AI today will not be here in 5 years. PwC just invested millions of dollars in educating its entire workforce, 65,000 people, in core AI skill up knowledge and how to use AI in your day jobs. And you're not seeing it just with PwC alone. You see it across the board that there's a lot of organizations saying we're doubling down, we're going to train AI, sales, marketing, HR, leadership, product, everyone is going to be touched by this. The second one that I have listed here is, and this one is enabled by AI, but a lot of people aren't paying attention to it as much as they should. But we're also on a longevity, massive transformative change as well. And part of that reason is the research, the mapping of the genome that happened over 20 years ago is truly starting to pay off. The 3 or 4 horsemen, depending on how you categorize them, brain degenerative, cancers, and heart disease, they have significant ways to stave off those from killing you, unlike it's done before. It does take a lot more preventative interaction to really get in front of it today, but the ability for them to really reduce what is killing individuals earlier than they probably should pass away, if you reduce those out, lifespan suddenly takes a huge leap forward. Plus our knowledge on environment, diet, what we consume, what we can do to protect our bodies, even just like going out on walks on a daily basis. This concept of being able to live longer is one thing, but the concept that doctors are really focusing on is this thing called health span. The reason I mention this is that there's a high likelihood that many of you in here are being told, hey, life expectancy 80, 85. If you're healthy and in your 40s and 50s right now, there is a really good chance you're going to break 100, but you're going to feel like a 70-year-old at age 100. And again, there's a lot of scientific periodicals that are really starting to touch upon this and saying if we eliminate these 3 or 4 horsemen, we have this is now the focus, is how do you maintain bone mass, muscle mass, diet, and so forth. You know, don't smoke, limit your drinking, eat healthy, and all of a sudden you could live a lot longer, but also have a healthier life a lot longer. Well, what does that mean for your day job? It means you might be working a lot longer. That's why I bring this up. I said, hey, for those who are saying, well, I'm 10 years from retirement, I'm like, you might take a hesitation there. It's like you might say, I should probably go back to university, learn some of this AI stuff. I might be employed for the next 30 years. This retirement, you know, it changes the math based on everything once you realize this. And the last one, this is the one where if you're an Elon Musk fan or not, you really need to start paying attention to what he's talking about with Neuralink and some of these other things. Technology embedded in the brain. We are that convergence of the ability to replicate neurons and what's going on there. They're testing the ability in monkeys right now to replace eyeballs with a artificial eyeball that is essentially going to cure blindness in the next 3 to 5 years in humans. So anyone's blind, you get a new eyeball, it's connected with the neurons in the back and is able to communicate with the brain correctly. This is the basic stuff that they're going. There's a podcast that was just released a couple weeks ago talking about that human beings are only able to, if you go on a text message, you're even on your device is waiting for a human to type something in to have it go do. To the device, that is like watching, you know, ice melt. It is so slow because the device is able to do millions of calculations per second, and it's watching someone type in character by character, you know, waiting for that input. What if you're able to eliminate the human side of this and go directly from brain into the device and have it communicate at millions of instructions per second to millions of instructions per second? This stuff is happening whether you like it or not. Start paying attention to it a little bit, because the next debate, way beyond AI, is who's starting to embed tech into your brains over the next 15 years, I would say. That's going to come up on the radar. It's within our lifetime, is who's going to be the first, you know, adopters of some of these technologies, and what's that going to mean? You know, perfect memory, you know, perfect record every aspect of your life, ability to communicate. Phil and I, he has an implant, I have an implant. We could communicate to each other from across the room here without having to actual talk. But again, much faster than the human voice is able to converse. this type of stuff, way beyond just AI is going to enable it, but you're going to live longer and you're going to start having technology intersect with human biology. And whoa, when you end up taking a look at all these things that are converging over the next 10 to 15 years, we're sitting at a point right now that it's going to require a lot of people. I go back to cybersecurity here for a second, saying, you got to start learning this stuff. So concluding here, and this is a picture of Alvin Toffler. My favorite quote with him is this one: "The illiterate of the 21st century will not be those who cannot read and write, but those who cannot learn, unlearn, and relearn." And that really becomes the core point of this, is that you need to go back and say, what is it going to take for you to potentially stay ahead of the different technologies that are out there in order for you to potentially progress your own learning, that you could start somewhere. It's not insurmountable, just pick at it a little bit per day. So we're gonna have you go learn stuff. And one of the ways we did this, and this is actually a cheat sheet written by my good friend Kate Marshall. She's one of these individuals, by the way, that is way leaning forward on the, hey, what's AI mean for me? And she takes a step back and says, let me start playing around with these different tools. And here are different resources that she found useful. And then she's been asked this question so often, it's like, well, where would you start? And so she created this like how to start checklist. And that's where you see on the screen that QR code. And we'll probably drop it in one of the resource channels in there as well. But there's free tools to go at least go and try. There's a ton of free training out there, literally AI for beginners. AI free courses you could take right now, 3 to 6 hours in length, and you just put it on playback and you start learning the basics. Podcasts that I listen to on a daily basis. It's kind of annoying to my kids when they're in the car with me, like the AI Daily Rundown. Oh my God, it's like 15 minutes long, but it goes through all the AI news on a daily basis, just so I could keep abreast of, oh, that's interesting, I should bookmark that and go Google what that debate is, what the policy thing is that's going on out there. But you have these things you potentially go take a look at and do. Now, as a part of this, when we talk about the 3 points in here I mentioned earlier, we have the AI enhanced skills that you're doing in your day job, AI policy and governance. If you're in that bucket, I highly recommend that checklist to start and saying, hey, here's a bunch of resources to start diving in on this stuff, to start educating yourself. You got to start somewhere. If you're on the AI attack surface, there's going to be a different path. You're going to go look for more of the data science courses. A lot of them are also free online that will really get you into the lower level structures, how LLMs are built, how machine learning works, what is the theory behind that, because that's what it's going to take in order to learn how to defend and also attack them. On the opposite side, we also need people to learn how to leverage AI in their day jobs, and we need that core basic understanding, that's that middle one, to have proper debates on AI policy and governance without a bunch of people who are just like, I don't know what AI is, so I'm gonna write up policies in my company that I'm guessing if this will work. That is not going to help your company. You need educated individuals who have that basics down in order to have that informed debate. So go learn stuff daily. It's kind of a big deal. Thank you. This is my contact information. This goes out to my LinkedIn. Feel free to follow me. Questions?